This episode is sponsored by SKS Luxury Appliances. If you've spent time around Signature Kitchen Suite, one thing designers notice right away is the technology. The interface feels familiar and intuitive because it's the same engineering that comes from LG, the company that produces the systems used in many of the luxury vehicles people drive today. Clients recognize it instantly and know how to navigate it, but SKS is also investing in designers through their Designer Rewards program and by sponsoring IDC. If you're specifying kitchens for serious cooks, give SKS a look. Learn more at sksappliances.com. SKS, built for people who truly love cooking. Hi, this is Laurie from To the Trade for Interior Design Community, and I have Nile with me. Hi, Nile.
Hi.
So excited to see you, as always. And we have a great topic today. We're going to start by introducing Ann Feldstein. Ann, I love that you're coming on to this podcast because we're going to be talking about something that you and I both are very passionate about, and that is women's rights, women's power in interior design community. I couldn't have worn a better shirt for that today.
Love it. I love the shirt.
My daughter bought me this at a thrift store, and I
love it.
love it.
Nice.
I love it. I always
Nice.
get looks when I wear it. People have asked me where I've gotten it. I was like, I don't know. But I will tell you, and I watched you on a podcast with Gail Doby, and I immediately wrote to you, and I loved the topic because my audience for interior design community is 85% women. It has been for the last 13 years, and as hard as I try to unite and educate and bring people together, I know that there's so much more work that I need to do to help our industry get stronger. And a lot of that is supporting women. So, Ann, please introduce yourself. You have an extensive background, and I want people to hear all about that first. So let's get into that.
My name is Ann Feldstein. I've been in the industry now for over 25 years. I started in 2000 at Kravet Inc., and I was there for 15 years, and it was the best education that I could get in this industry. When I first joined Kravet, I was surprised at how long it took me to really understand the nuances of this industry. It's just such a unique type of industry, and the work that the designers do and the manufacturers and the trade brands and how we create our own ecosystem. But of course,
It really is.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's our own ecosystem with a huge amount of buying power.
Absolutely. Billions of dollars of buying
Billions of
power.
dollars, with a small number of people buying those billions of dollars. But of course, they did notice that the large majority of interior designers were women. But then when you got to the designers that were getting license collections, designers that were having books, the executives at the trade brands, the females were not represented. Women were not represented there. And I've just always been a girl's girl. And the past couple of years, I've just really have dove into why women are so hard on other women and steps we can take to change that. Of course, this all benefits the patriarchy, but as women, I feel that if we could come together, there's so much more that we can accomplish. And I had the opportunity to present at Kravet Inc. I went back to my home company and I presented on why women are so hard on other women and steps we can take to change that. And it's just something that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
And I realized I skipped over after my 15 years of Kravet. In 2015, I went out on my own and I opened up Moxie Marketing. And of course, Moxie, the meaning of Moxie is basically female empowerment.
I love it. I love it. And you are very serious about it. And we've had great conversations about what you think the issues are, where we could come together as a community. You know, there's a lot of there is misogyny, but we have to recognize that women have built-in misogyny too. Microaggressions, a fear of being open, a fear of sharing information. I do see designers that combat that in ways that you would not expect and have amazing success. I have a friend, Shelly Hudson, as an example. She's in the Hermosa Beach area, and she has a group of maybe 15 designers on a text group. And she weeds people out if they're taking more than they give, you know? But they are direct competitors. Like, she will be talking to a client, a proposed client, and she'll say, all right, I'm meeting with this potential client. Is anyone else putting in a bid? And those people in that group will say, I am, or no, haven't heard from them, and isn't that great information? You know, this person isn't meeting with every single designer, or know that they are meeting with every single designer. you know how each other bill, you know different resources. They share literally everything, no secrets, no holding back.
Love that.
They're in a great example of how, and they are direct competitors. They are in the exact same area. And it has strengthened their business to be this way. They have developed better systems. They have raised their prices. They have, and not in a price fixing way, but just to, some clarity on how other people budget and understanding of how you should put your proposals out there. And so it has just made them better designers by working together on a real way, like really digging in. And this is how I pitch. And here's some resources for you. And hey, oh, your wallpaper guy is sick. So I know a great wallpaper guy. He can do really intricate stuff. Here's that resource. Or your brand is giving you a problem. And they share the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. And I love to see that. I love to see that on a community level. I wish I could get more of it.
That's where I think knowledge is power. Sharing that
Yeah.
information, the more information you have, the more better informed you can be in regards to the decisions you make for your business. I do want to step back to a point you first started with. And when I started this research, and all of my research is it's credited, whether it's Psychology Today or Harvard Business Review, or I can't remember all the places that I've pulled my information from. But one of the terms that I learned was internalized misogyny. And that is when women project misogyny onto other women because of the beliefs that they have. And it could be as simple as their mom told them never to leave the house without makeup. It could be, I think there's a ton of judgment from one mom to the next.
Oh, yeah.
I feel that there's so much pressure for moms. Did you
Or
breastfeed?
not mom, or not
Well,
being
now
mom.
moms, yes, and of
Yeah.
course, and then not moms. If you don't have children, everyone just assumes you sit around and eat bonbons every evening and you have no responsibility, as opposed to just women supporting other women and the choices that they make. When I first left Kravit in 2015, and I was opening up Moxie, Elizabeth Blitzer of Blitzer and Co. was very kind and shared everything with me. She shared her proposals, she shared her rates, all of the things. And when I said to her, Elizabeth, do you think the market is saturated? Do you think? And she said, and the right client will find you. The market's not saturated, and not every client is meant for every person. Like the right client will find you. There's more than enough for everyone. She
Yeah.
didn't hold back. She wasn't concerned that I was leaving Crowded.
Editor. Yeah.
And there were other people. There were a few people that were rude to me when I first went out on my own. But Elizabeth was transparent, set me up for success, and I'll never forget that.
That is what we need in this industry. And it is true that someone who wants to work with Anne isn't the same person that wants to work with her. So she knew
Mhm.
that it wasn't going to affect her business to share everything with you, and it was going to help you and start you out on the right foot. Because if you, let's just say you didn't have that information and you were blind and in the dark and trying to price things, generally you're going to go too low.
Mhm.
Generally you're going to give too much. Generally you could take you 5 years. And I think in this industry, it takes 10 years for a designer to learn their process and pricing and system. And then and get comfortable with it, like own it. Like, nope, this is the process. This is how it works. We don't go around it. This has saved me. And that's just what it
Agreed.
is. And we're not going to bend on it. The
Yep.
confidence to say that and the confidence to mean it, that can be shortened
Mhm.
intensely by sharing, by really getting information. Right now, we're working on something in interior design community where I asked, and I'm polling in our stories, to how long it takes to design each room that I can think of in a residential property. So it will be a primary suite, a full bath, a half bath, a regular bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, a study, a library, every room I can think of. So you could mix and match it depending on what the client wants. And you have a number of it took this many hours. So 23% said this many, 42% said this many, so that you can create an average for yourself. After that, we're going to do one on procurement time and installation time. Like from design to installation, how long do you think would you budget this for the client? Now, obviously, intricacies can change that, but I think we have a big proposal and guide problem, investment guide problem in our industry where we really need to be a little bit more transparent about what that is. Again, without price fixing, it's not about price fixing. It's just that if I were selling hot
It's about
dogs,
leveling the playing field.
I could figure out what's the low on hot dogs, what's the high on hot dogs. And that's the problem with our industry. You cannot find out what the median should be, what the median is. And so this bit of sharing information is how we get stronger and is how we stop making mistakes and undercharging. And that hurts the industry.
Mhm.
I have designers who, and this is, I'm not saying this in a way to hurt them, okay? But I had a panel discussion. I think, Nile, you were on that. The woman in the audience said she was charging $50 an hour. And the whole room gasped. And I felt so bad for her because I'm like, of course she doesn't. And she's like, I worked for a designer for 3 years. Then I went out on my own. I've been on my own. Or she worked for a designer for 5 years. Then went out on her own for the last 3 years. She didn't think she had enough experience to charge more. Audience was like, absolutely not. You should be at a minimum of 150 an hour. You're not going to be able to bill for every hour you work. So you can't do that. And you're driving down the value of design in the area that you're working in, which she doesn't know. How does she know when you can't go on any interior designer's website
And
and
find out that
see how
information.
they charge?
And that, and that is where I think having mentors and people that you can turn to and get that type of information is really helpful. And
Yeah.
that is where women, if they support each other more and share that type of information, it's like a high tide raises all boats. It's good for
Yes.
everyone, in my personal opinion.
Now let's get back to the microaggression part because I think that's so interesting. Have learned a lot, believe it or not, from my daughter's generation, the Gen Zers, because I was reading this book a few years ago about something called fair trade. And it was more about like your home life situation and how women take on a mental role, a load role. Like planning Christmas, they're figuring everything out for Easter, they're every major holiday, every school thing. Not saying this isn't all only women. Nile does this too. But women take on this role also. And it gets to be that they are the brain of the family. And there is a mental health cost to that because they're taking everything on. What their husband's mother is going to get for Christmas, that's usually the woman. It's St. Patrick's Day coming up, and the kids need to all be in green. Who's running to the store to get all the green things that they can be head to toe in green? Me, usually. The doctor's appointments. The kids would ask my husband, and my husband's amazing, by the way. He's like a team player person, but didn't know their best friends, couldn't name a teacher that they've ever had.
Right. The
You
mental
know,
load
he
for
just doesn't know that. And I know all the gossip about every kid, like all their who they've dated, their best friends, when their best friends broke up, why they broke up, who they are, who they're dating, now that they're going through a breakup. I know it all. And that my husband's like, I don't
a
know.
very interesting point of that, though, is women are expected to know that and men are not.
Right.
You expect women to know all the information about the kids, all the information about the extended family, all the dates, all the appointments, all the holidays. That's expected. And it's not for men. And that's a great example of the mental load. The burden is so much more significant for women than it is for men.
Yeah. I didn't even know I had it. I until I heard that expression,
Right.
I didn't even know that is the resentment I was carrying. Sometimes that would blow up. I'd be blowing up at my husband over. I had no idea that's actually why we were fighting because it wasn't about you didn't bring home dinner even though I am stressed to the max. You should have known that today was a horrible day and picked up some slack.
Mhm.
It wasn't really about that. It was about the fact that I was spent on a mental load level.
I don't know if you heard the story. I saw it on Instagram, but a couple was traveling with their infant and the diaper bag accidentally got packed in the with the suitcases. So it
Right,
wasn't his carry-on. And of course it became a mom fail. So the child has two parents there and the person that got blamed for it was the mom.
right, right,
It was a mom fail. It wasn't a parent fail. It wasn't a dad fail, even though chances are he was the one handling the luggage,
right.
right? But it was a mom fail. So the mother got blamed that the diaper bag got checked instead of being carried on. And that's an example. And a part of the presentation that I give is taking that burden off of women for other women. So whatever the judgment is you wear makeup, you wear too much makeup, you had too many kids, you didn't have enough kids, you went back to work, you didn't go back to work. Where I feel that if we remove that judgment from each other, we're already fighting the patriarchy and other systemic issues. But if we remove that and join together, like we talked about earlier, sharing information, setting each other up for success, I think that is where women would really benefit
Yeah.
and really allow strong relationships in their lives. And I think so many women, they're set up to judge each other versus
And you
accepting.
do it without even noticing you're doing it sometimes. You're like suspicious, or what do they want from me? Or, there's always, you don't even sometimes notice you're doing it. That is the hard part about this is that it's so ingrained in us to notice.
Because it started very early. Look at the nursery books that children read, girls especially. Cinderella, Snow White, all of them are women or girls being the other competition. Cinderella is a great example of that. They don't like her because she's prettier and she's going to get the prince. I mean, that is a lot of, especially our age. I love that the younger generations are turning away from the classics and
And the
are rewriting the
body
rules.
expectations of it too, where it was completely unrealistic body expectations. The hair was
And then there's
ridiculously
that.
long and flowing and like perfect. We can't live up to a 2-inch waist and
No,
a
no,
Barbie doll figure. I mean, they've done like videos showing what a Barbie would look like if they were an actual human being, and it's like she's 10 foot tall, she
right.
has a 12-inch waist.
She'd fall over
It's
because she's not
ridiculous. She'd
proportionate.
fall over. It's impossible for someone to have a body that looks like that, or to have hair that is that full and coiffed and perfect at all times. But how many times have we walked into a room? And Nile, I'm curious about you too. Have you walked in a room and you immediately sized up the room? Are where do you fit in the hierarchy? Where are you as far as beauty standards are concerned, or thinness is concerned? Like, I used to walk into a room, am I thinner than some people? You just do it automatically. You're not even
Messages.
trying to do it, but you're doing it. Are
Yeah.
you doing that, Niall?
I mean, I guess you yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, I don't I guess I would do more so in person. I don't have the thing with the TV or the movies. I never understood like movies and media and stuff like that, like the standards that they might be setting for. Because I was always just taught that that's not reality. Like all of that is fantasy. So I was always really good at separating like, okay, well, this is just entertainment. I don't have to be that. But walking into another room, yeah, I could see myself sizing myself up, you know, to who else is in the room. But I will say, like, if I double back to what you said about the diaper bag thing, I think honestly and truthfully, the reason why people say it was a woman fail is because they don't expect the man to do it because we're not as smart as women. I think that's what it is. I think in some cases, women have to stop and understand that society isn't putting things on you because we feel like you should bear the burden. They're putting things on you because they truly believe you are the superior sex. Like men just are not that smart. They're not that intelligent. We really aren't. And so it would never occur to a man. It just wouldn't. And you guys know it wouldn't to look at all of the luggage and say, the diaper bag, that should be with us. Like we would never do that. Like it would just never even occur to us. Whereas like, and it's still wrong because
Yeah.
it should occur to us, right? Because it's a partnership, right? But it just in a lot of cases, it just doesn't. It
One
just
of the things
doesn't.
I noticed, and this was early on. So my daughter was in it was the Junior Honor Society. So you had to, when she was in middle school, she had to have A's and I think like 1B, and you had to have a certain amount of like community service time, like you're in sports and things like that to be on the Junior Honor Society. One of the things I noticed was, and I'm curious if we could ever extrapolate this as a data point in our country, because there were two boys. There were maybe 25 kids on that were in the Junior Honor Society, but two boys. Once you go to college, I mean high school, where actually now being on the honor society matters more. It's going on your college transcript, or an officer is getting picked for school, class president. then you're seeing, I have witnessed in my own children's lives the misogyny that exists because it changes completely. There are much more men in the honor society and if you look at class presidents, my son Hunter was a class president. I love him, but he's a C student, he's a great leader, but he's
Had
a
the
C
courage to
student.
run.
But
He's
I think you touched on exactly what it is. You said once you go to high school where it matters, things change. And it's this I've said this to you before, Lori, in private. This is all about ego, and I'll say it again. I don't care who hears me say it. This is why we don't have a woman president, because men, their ego can't take it. Because what will happen is as soon as a woman gets in charge, about 90% of our problems will be solved. And the male ego is too fragile to take that. And what will happen is we'll say, we went through 47 presidents and we couldn't solve what number 48 did. 48 solved it like that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what the issue is. So that's why with the honor society, you see that change, because it's like, oh, let them have it in middle school. But when it gets to high school where it matters and it's part of your whole ego, then we'll do a whole swap,
yeah.
because we've got to beef up that male ego thing. I don't know. It takes you back to that caveman, sort of days, like club
It's
them over the head and drag them back. It's all ego.
It is 100% ego. And I have to say, Nile, I've just met you, but I love you. I so appreciate everything that you said. I so appreciate that you have the confidence to say it. Okay. Because that's
Yeah.
really important. A lot of men do not. The amount of men that I have engaged with that will hear my 25-year career, that I was vice president of Cravat, or that I oversaw this, or I launched that, how desperately they want to try and take me down a peg. They want to show that they know more than me. And I'm like, I'm here just existing. Like, I know what I bring to the table. And I am also someone that wants to learn all the time. I'm always looking to learn. And even if it's how not to do something, I see benefit in that. But the amount of men that will be intimidated by my success or my experience or any of those things. And
That's a shame.
it is.
That's a shame.
And before we started the call, you said something that was so and valid. Women don't, and why the matriarchy would be so successful. Women don't think in a singular way. They think of their environment. So
Mhm.
they're not thinking solely what will benefit me. What will benefit our community. And like a matriarchal society puts the most vulnerable in the center. Our children, our elderly, our sick. And that's a very different point of view versus just what do I benefit from this particular role.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's
Hugely.
why it's so important to build up women's confidence.
Yes.
It's a truth. I mean, everything I've learned in terms of my business came from a woman. A male didn't teach me anything. And I'm not talking, I had male teachers in college, but I didn't start learning about the business until I got out of college. And every single thing I learned came from a woman. So I can't see why why we just can't be honest. Women are the backbone of our society. And I just don't know why we can't just say it, acknowledge it, honor it, and move on. We'd be so much
Well,
better if we could.
I completely agree. And a fantastic book to read is the one by Melinda French Gates. And
Yeah, I
she
love
talks about how it's a fantastic book. It is a life-changing book. And in addition, what isn't said is even more, what's the word I'm looking for? What she doesn't say about what's happening in society to women, you can get the subtext of it. But the point is, when she was still with Bill and they started the Gates Foundation, they were going around to eradicate poverty and things. And they realized every country they went to, every problem that they came across would be solved if women were elevated. If women were given the tools to be successful, if women had access to finances, all of the problems would be solved by lifting women up. Poverty, illness, abuse, all of the things would be solved just by lifting women up. And it's highly recommend everybody read the book. It's a fantastic book. But the fact that women are successful with all the things that we have on our shoulders, whether it's taking care of children, taking care of our senior parents, taking care of our communities, in addition to the mental load, it's almost amazing that we've been able to be successful with all of the burdens that we do have on us. I keep seeing this post on Instagram and it always, I would say makes me laugh. It was a man talking about how he was going through medical school and he never missed the gym every day. And everyone's like, well, how do you do it? Like, how are you so successful? And he's like, I'm just disciplined. And then an event came up and they met his wife who cooked his 3 meals, his wife who did his laundry, his wife that mowed the lawn, his wife that took care of everything. So, like I always say, imagine if I had a wife, what I could accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do still have women, I will say. We had a post, I want to say a month ago, and it was talking about sharing information with your competition. And there was a woman in that thread who said, why would I share any information about my competitors? They're my competitors. I am not going to share anything with my competitors. We have such a great community. I didn't have to jump in. They jumped in for me. They were like, how would you expect to get information if you're not willing to give information? And that's not a real friendship. And you're not going to build real community with other people who are willing to help you out because someday you're going to need that. You're going to need
Yep.
that resource. You're going to need that tip. You're going to need that advice. And if you don't give, you're not going to get. So obviously, we're stronger if we come at this together. But there are so many women that tear other women down. And we do it to ourselves too. I noticed in the proposal thing, the PowerPoint that you sent over, you were like, women apologizing because they, before they even have a chance to say anything, they're apologizing for what? Or they're meek and mild. And I think what do you think about this? How do you feel about this? And they're perfectly capable, brilliant, smart, amazing, prepared women, but downgrading their power by being not being confident enough, not being direct enough.
That's the messaging they received. And by the way, they're penalized if they're too direct.
Right.
They're
Yep.
penalized if they're
That's
too
it.
direct.
They're a bitch
Right?
if they're too direct.
Correct.
Yep.
Absolutely. If you are confident and you project your voice and all of the things, the amount of times that I was told when I was in school that I talk too much, I'm too loud, all of the things, because I was a social person and I know how to speak and project. But as a little girl, that's not acceptable.
Something out. This happened to me early in my career. And I was made to apologize to male managers. I worked as a manager of a consumable products department. So the sales team reported to me, the sample department reported to me, the product development reported to me. I developed products for fine art reproduction and wallpaper. I had a huge team. And there was another woman that worked for my boss, and she would go around and say good morning to all of the other male managers.
Mhm.
And I didn't, because my job was really intense and I didn't have the time to do that for an hour in the morning. And I was brought into a meeting where they were saying to me that I'm not friendly enough.
Right.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? That I wasn't taking the time. Now, keep in mind, were 0 male managers that came in to say good morning to me. How was your weekend? What did you do? Do you have a coffee? Like, never. Like, that never happened. But he liked that this woman did that and thought that I should be doing that too. And that he wanted me to apologize to the other male managers because I wasn't personable enough. I wasn't friendly enough.
Because
And I was
God,
24, 25 years old. This other woman manager literally asked me when I was pregnant if I thought I would be a good mother because I was too work oriented.
I can believe that, because everyone expects women to be kind and warm and welcoming. And if you don't make them feel comfortable, there must be something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Not that you're too busy or focused or any of those things.
Yeah. I was first in, last out every single day, and worked my butt off. I will tell anybody out there, I was like, I may not be better than every other person out there, but I will outwork you. I am a worker bee. I work 7 days a week. I just am that way. I've always been that way.
Well,
So
how many meetings have you been in where they ask a female employee to take the notes?
yes,
It's always a female employee to take the notes.
right.
It's never, the male employee to take the notes. Now
No.
there's AI and you can record it and all of
Who's going to order lunch?
Who's going to order lunch? Absolutely. Another thing that falls to the woman. Who's going to put the sales meetings together? Who's going to
Yeah.
put the event together?
Yeah. Who's going to do the
It's outside of
PowerPoint?
having an event person.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Who's
Because
going
a
to order the
woman,
food if there's an event later on in the evening? Who's going to make sure it's, stylish and cool and, that there's enough seats for everyone?
the way women think. And that is where I feel that if women really and truly supported one another and helped each other be as successful as possible, that it helps all women. Right. And it's removing the judgment. And, one of the examples that I always talk about, and loved my mother. She was the most important person in my life. And I love my brother, but how my mother treated me versus my brother was very different growing up.
Same.
And that's a really clear example. Whether it's Thanksgiving, Easter, Christmas, any of the holidays, the women were expected to clean up while the men went into the living room to watch TV or do whatever, nap, read a book, do something. But it was the women that, in addition to preparing the meal, then cleaned up, got everything ready for dessert, et cetera, et cetera. And that, I mean, I think that's still pretty true today. The burden
Mhm.
of that, and that's an example of growing up where women are taught to just do this extra labor all the time.
All the time.
Right. And the men don't have to do it.
I know. And how does that change? How do we do that? What practices do you think we can do as women when we catch ourselves judging other women or going to that place of fear where we're not giving the information or we're feeling offended? It happens to me. I don't always feel it, but sometimes I get people who are in my DMs asking me, they're like, your community that you've built is exactly my core audience. Would you mind sharing this sales thing for
Mhm.
me? And I'm always like, no, I don't sell my own audience. I'm not selling them for you. You know what I mean? Like if I genuinely like something and I come across it and I want to share, hey, this is a great resource, that's a different thing. But it's like cringe to me. But I do want to support other women, but sometimes I even find myself like I'm quick to judge sometimes. I am that way. I know that I am that way. Like,
Well,
and for me, it's like, are their social numbers real? Is their portfolio showing good work? Do I think they are someone that should be speaking at an event because they can teach what they actually know? I go through and I'm quick to
well, that
judge.
point though, I think is a valid one because you're putting on an event and you want your audience to have strong takeaways. So the third one I think is valid as long as you're making that decision from a point of view that is free of judgment of how the person looks or the life
Yeah,
decisions that they made.
right.
So the first thing is stopping yourself and saying like, okay, if I'm judging this person, what is making me judge this person? Because oftentimes it's something inside of us. And I will tell you, I mean, I am a completely different person now than I was when I was younger. I was definitely, judging women because from birth, it was, if a woman's prettier than you, she's going to get the attention or the guy's going to like her. And of course, the messaging has always been that we're not thin enough.
Right.
Because part of it is if
And look
we're
at what's happening now. We watch these people on Ozempic, and they're too thin. And they're,
right,
oh my God, we can't stand how thin they are.
right. It
And
so it doesn't matter what
it
women are.
doesn't matter
We're
how
going
thin
to
you
judge
are.
no
You're
matter
never
what.
right. You're never the
Right.
right
Right.
fit.
But part of why keeping women thin is if you're hungry and tired, you really can't fight the patriarchy. There's only so much energy that you have.
Yeah.
Right. And now with Ozempic and these other GLPs, it doesn't matter. We're going to judge you no matter what, whether you're thin. There's no such thing as the perfect weight. And then we judge people based on their life choices. We judge women if
And their hair, their
their hair,
hairstyle, their
their nails,
makeup, the clothes
their
that they're
how they're
wearing, their fingernails, their shoes, the bag that they carry.
right.
It goes on and on and on.
Going back to what we had asked Nile earlier about walking into a room. You walk into a room and most men are somewhat dressed similarly, right? Now it's dark rinsed jeans or some sort of trousers, a nice sneaker or a shoe, a button down and
Well,
a
Nile
jacket.
has his own street style, which is the
Right.
coolest
But
of the cool. I love walking in with him at a trade show.
some version of that, right? And if
Right.
Nile pushes the envelope, I love that. But you walk in and women, there'll be some women that are just dressed for functionality, and then other women dressed as if they're going to the Oscars. And it doesn't matter which one we're at, we're going to judge the women for what they're wearing.
Yeah.
That also puts us at a disadvantage in regards to finances because we have to spend so much more on how we look, nails, hair, eyelashes, clothing. Men can travel for a week and bring the same suit and change it out with a shirt and a tie and a pocket square. Women can't do that. So all of these things, it's recognizing them and acknowledging them. And if you're going to judge someone, stopping yourself from
Yeah.
judging them.
Yeah. Stopping
Thinking
in the moment and recognizing that you're making an assumption and that you're not giving grace to a person that you don't know. You
right.
know?
You never know what someone could be a new
You never
mom
know
or
what
in
someone could
college
be going through. You
or
don't know what they're dealing with. You
right.
don't know what their life looks like. And, it's so much better to come at that with a sense of raising people up than tearing people down, And
Agree.
I mean, I wouldn't have built this community if I didn't truly, truly believe that. But at times I find that I'm introspective enough to recognize my own internalized misogyny. And I try to be better on a daily basis. I feel like I've changed a tremendous amount from understanding the mental load that I was carrying and trying to divvy that up somewhat back now that my children are adults, back to them, back to others so that I could give more time to the community. If you've seen me in the last 5 years at a trade show, it's because my kids grew up and I was able to leave them to go to those trade shows because my husband traveled too. And we had to pick, who could take the trips, and it was him. Now my kids are older. It doesn't matter. So we could both go on trip and it's fine. But I didn't have the ability to come to every high point and do every design edge or be as involved in teaching in person as I have been in the last 5 years. And it has made the community a lot stronger that I'm out there and I am doing that. But I couldn't. And also giving grace to what you can't do. I remember talking to an interior designer, Meredith Huck, and she's flat fee because she's like, look, I know I'm making money. I know my money. I'm very smart about my money. I know that, but dollars and cents per hour for every project and every little thing, I don't, because I have 3 kids at home. And
Right.
my time is, I'm not going to spend the time that I have tracking every hour. And this works for me and my family and where I am now. And it was the first time it clicked with me, do you, like what works for you? Because so much of my time I'm spending saying, no, you cannot take that from someone else. You cannot do that. You should know your numbers. You should be drilling down where are your profit centers, because I'm trying to help this industry. But also part of helping this industry is understanding people where they are and being able to provide support no matter where they are.
That I do agree. If someone knows their business and they know what works for them, no need to argue. They know what
Yeah.
works. They know what works for them.
Yeah.
I think it's really just about
And it's not one size fits all in
it's
this
definitely
industry.
not one size fits all. And
Yeah.
I think that's a part of our society right now that we are struggling with is we're all expected to fit in this very narrow box, right? You work 40 plus hours a week. You're lucky if you get 2 weeks vacation. You're working for all of the things that we need in our lives. There's not a lot of room for creativity or family or or community,
Right.
and that to me,
I
I
think
think
people are lonely. I think
I
people are
think so too.
desperately lonely right now.
And I think that's and in the US to make us workers, because if you look at European cities and Central and South American cities, it's all about community, right? And was learning about I forgot the word that they use, but most people have like 3
Third place. Yeah.
yeah, third place. So it's work, it's home, and then it used to be church or community or
A
town.
restaurant, a cafe, place you go
Right.
every day that you feel a sense of people there.
And it's not
When
your
we were
work
in Spain,
and it's not your home.
I took my kids to Spain for they were older. And they do these Rambla streets that
Mhm.
have like restaurant. And we were shocked. It was, summertime, but it would be 11 o'clock at night and little kids are running around and people are sitting and just chit chatting and
Same with
talking. Restaurants, and my sister is a high end or was a high end restaurant waitress. And she was like an hour and a half. I want you in and out of there so I can get someone else in that seat. That's what it's designed for here in the United States.
Mhm.
There, they don't care if you're sitting there all night long. They encourage
Exactly.
it. They want you to do it. No. No, they want you out as they want you 45 minutes if it's casual, an hour and a half tops if it's more formal.
A lot of people have replaced that third space with online, which is
Sure.
it's not a great
No.
representation for that in connection.
No.
One of the reasons I believe CrossFit was so successful is that it offered community. And you could be, my mom did it at 95 and everybody loved my mom. You could be an elite athlete at 22 years old, or you could be a 95-year-old. Everybody embraced everybody and the workouts could be modified for whomever the skill set.
My grandmother was a big bridge player. She belonged to the yacht club locally and the women's club, and she played bridge multiple times a week. When we would come into town, she'd have her calendar and she was like, okay, we can go out to dinner this night and I can spend time with you this. She did not miss her bridge appointments
It was her
when it
community,
was her community.
you
It's
know.
what she loved to do. And even though we were visiting, she was like gonna do her thing. And I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. When I gave the presentation at Kravit, I was thinking of a way to start the presentation and I wanted to share from my own experience. And I'll share it with you now. I was a CrossFit coach for 12 years. I owned a gym. I had two partners and I was a coach for 12 years. And I can tell you 3 to 4 times a week, I would have to say to a man, like, you have too much weight on that bar. Strip the bar. It's too much. Like you're not at that level yet. Strip it down. Go a little bit lighter. The amount of times I had to say to women, put more weight on that bar. You can do more than you think you can. Like that's too light
Mhm.
for you. In my 12 years there, I can say 3 or 4 times I had to say to a woman to strip the bar, to take off some of the weight. 9 times out of 10, even more than that, I had to tell women to put more weight on the bar. But the men, I often had to say, you've got too much weight on that bar. Your
Wow.
skill set is not there. And that is
The
to me,
allegory. That is an allegory for life, man.
Yes,
We do
indeedy.
not believe in ourselves enough.
that is a great example of the difference between men and women. And then the fact that a female coach told them to strip the bar, oh my God, they were so offended.
Of
It
course. Of
didn't
course.
matter if I had a decade under my belt of being a CrossFit coach. I was a middle-aged woman telling a young man or a man to strip the weight on the bar, and their ego was greatly offended.
Did they come back?
But you could tell by their whole face that they didn't like being told, especially by a woman, to strip weight off the bar, that
I'm
they didn't
sure.
have the capabilities to lift that amount of weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is a great analogy. I mean, that's just a great example of the
It
difference.
is. It really is because we don't believe in ourselves enough. We don't give ourselves enough credit. And it's not, you're talking about physical weight, but it's the weight of
Every,
understanding your business or believing in yourself or that can be applied to everything we do in our industry. We are
absolutely.
capable. We do know the answers. We can find the answers. And we can believe in ourselves more and believe in each other more. And we are going to be better off if we do that. We're as an industry.
I think that's the most important point to take away. Whenever we have the opportunity to elevate and support a woman, it's only going to benefit all of us.
Right. And point out, I was looking at an ad for Architectural Digest when they announced their 8100, and I couldn't help but notice that I know architects are in the mix. And I know that women architects they're just not as many architects as men, and that there are lots of, but if you sat there and counted, and there are Architectural Digest has the top 100 for multiple different countries. If you're counting them, as I was counting them, I was kind of surprised by the number of men versus women in an industry where I see 85% of my audience is women in the interior design community. And, I wonder about that automatic built-in authority, that
They're,
men have and the
they're not
trust that they
reflecting
have immediately that we have to work so hard to earn.
greed. I don't know if you know Elise Lunin. She used to host the Goop podcast. She's since left and she's written a book about this topic. And she's coined the term manel because when it comes to a panel, even if it's a if it's an industry with 85% women, you're going to see 85% men on the panel versus women. And a part of it is just, as you had mentioned, like there's this assumed authority on a topic. So that's
Right.
another example.
Sometimes I'm sitting in that audience going, no, don't say that. Don't say that. Those numbers are junk, you know? And I'm just like, it's all I can do to but sit on my hands and zip my mouth shut because it's just not every man. I mean, we are about to do Design Edge. Dwayne Bergman is one of your clients. I adore him and think he's brilliant and he's great about sharing information.
It is great about sharing
He
information.
really is dedicated and just gonna throw it out there. Barrett Bergman Home, great resource for interior designers. I'm just gonna say it. You should look them up and get your design account because it's a good resource.
Yeah.
But I do think that sometimes I am sitting there. I was at a conference in Vegas, and I've told the people running it, there was a man and woman, and on the man is clearly like the business person and the designer. The woman is the designer. But the numbers were terrible. Terrible, terrible. They did renovation, furniture, hardscape, design fees, interior $300,000 in like 9 weeks or a rush job. I was like, what? What kind of like how much are you making? Like that is
Nothing.
bananas. Nothing, really, at the end of the day.
Nothing.
Yeah. And junk is being put into that house, like junk, you know? They were and they admitted it. They were like, we don't care if the furniture lasts a year. Ugh, makes me want to throw up.
Should not be the attitude because that is not good for the industry.
No.
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 You know?
No, it was all I could do to just like jump up and say, no, don't do it.
Since I've had Moxie, the amount of female designers that I've worked with, that their husbands have gotten involved because their business has been so successful.
So successful.
And
Oh,
they
tons
come
of
in
them.
and move things around and change things around. And I'm like, the business was successful before you came on board.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, like you're not saving me, I'm saving you. I built the successful business. It was my idea. Like I am the one who did that.
That is never the approach. That
No.
is never the approach.
No, usually he's doing the finance. He's telling her what she can buy. He's
Well, yeah.
what she can invest in, you know?
Right. So I'm like, but this business was successful before you. You only came on board when it was successful.
Right.
You weren't a part of the journey to make it successful. So don't come in now and try and change it.
Right. Right. Or not, at least not listen to my ideas too, because I'm the one who knows. Oh, I'm the one who knows the client. I'm the one who understands the business on a different level. So I see that a lot. And mostly it's needed and it is sometimes a very good partnership too. You know,
Fully, I
maybe there's a mindset of the husband that the wife doesn't have and he is, you know, it got him out of his job that he doesn't like. So he has a much more understanding. I will say I used to work with my husband and I think it's problematic. For me, it was really problematic because we had to have, he does a little bit of work for me now too, but we had to have very clear boundaries because of that reason. Like I didn't want to have to really over explain things to him all the time. You know, like I need you to trust me that this is the direction and I don't want to have to over explain all the time why I need things a certain way. I want to be able to tell you I need this and for you to research it and figure it out like I would if I were in your role. So it's those kinds of things where you have to understand there's an onboarding. You have to understand there are roles, but you also have to have some authority in a business that you've built and that other people are seeing you as the leader too, because let's just say you also have a team, not just your husband working for you. And how many of those employees are going to go to you versus him and making sure that you still have the authority as the leader of the business.
Absolutely.
You
100%.
know? And in writing that it's your business, by the way, too, because I've also seen divorces happen.
Right.
And that could be partnerships or design businesses that where there's a woman owner to begin with, and you want to have that clearly defined about the business and the ownership of the business, and so it doesn't get messy ever in the case that your relationship gets a little messy.
One point that I just want to make before we wrap up, talking about how to overcome and not judge other women. A great example of that is how women are represented in media.
Right.
So, an example that I always like to give is I feel that we shame young girls for being fans of Taylor Swift or Beyonce or Harry Styles, right? Like if they're fangirling, right? As society, we look down on that. But a middle-aged man can be a fanatic for a sports team and
Or
spend
Star
thousands
Wars
of dollars on
or
tickets.
whatever.
Right. And that is not looked down upon. Right. And if you look at the year, was it 2024, where it was Beyonce, Taylor Swift, and the Barbie movie, and they literally elevated our economy.
Mhm.
But we know, I think it was 2024. It's either 2023 or 2024.
Yeah, it was one of those years. Yeah, yeah.
Taylor Swift was touring, Beyonce was touring, and the Barbie movie came out, and that truly lifted our economy. It's been
Mhm.
proven everywhere that Taylor Swift has performed and Beyonce has performed that there's been a boom in the local economy. But my example, is we have to look at that differently instead of shaming young girls for who they admire or who they enjoy listening to. Right? It's the same thing in my mind. If someone's a Taylor Swift fan or a Beyonce fan or a Harry Styles fan, is the same thing to me if someone is a Yankee fan or a Dallas Cowboy fan or any of those things.
Right.
But we don't look at that, and it's represented very differently in the media.
It is, absolutely. And I want to kind of end on asking too, because men have built in authority, how can we enlist the men in our industry to point this out or advocate for women more or raise the profile of their women colleagues? If we have, I know Nile does this behind the scenes. He is enormous mentor for so many designers, male and women, but a lot of women come to
Yeah, most
Nile
of the women.
with business questions on a daily basis, and he never talks about it, but he is behind the scenes. Like if I go to a trade show with him, the amount of women that come up to him, like, oh my God, it's Nile. I'm so excited to see you. Oh my God, in person. You just helped me so much. Like, it's so lovely to see. So he's an advocate behind the scenes so often, but how does he get more involved and being an advocate more publicly? How would we suggest that?
I think raising women's confidence is important. And Niall, it sounds like you're doing that. So thank you so much. Even acknowledging what Niles has said throughout this podcast, that women are smarter, that if a female president came in, that most of our issues would be gone in their first term. Acknowledging what we bring to the table. A lot of men don't do that. A lot of men do believe they're superior and that women aren't that smart. They're wrong, but this is where I just think it's giving everyone an opportunity to speak. And if someone is shyer or lacks confidence, build that person up. Don't tear them down. Look for an opportunity to give them a place to shine or to feel good about themselves, or even just reinforce that what they're doing is correct.
One of the things I'm going to do in the next year, and I'm going to try, I get very busy. This is like something I really want to incorporate, and I'm hiring someone to give me some more extra time to be able to do this. But do you know like the Great American Bake Off or the Great American Bake Off and the Bake Off?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
love it.
I love like when Paul Hollywood gives the handshake. And so I thought that I would do a letter to 10 designers a month, and I would write to them about, acknowledging their work and what I'm seeing. Like just randomly, like I see something and I call it out and say, you're doing an amazing thing. I'm so proud of you and I see you. And then send it like personal letter to them
I think that's
directly,
a wonderful idea.
just because I think that will matter. I think that will be
Yeah,
like
that does matter.
raising up that designer, and I think it's very isolating, even if you have a team, for someone to see you and see the effort that you're putting in and paying attention, and acknowledging it. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I don't know if that's helpful, but
I do think it is. I think it's always helpful for people to be seen.
Yes.
In any kind of capacity, it feels good to be seen. And one of the things that I noticed in my 25 years in this industry, very few firm owners have a counterpart or a partner. They have subordinates, but they don't necessarily have someone that is their equal, which is why I think at events, they're so eager to connect. All the events that I've been, like I've done events with David Easton, Alexa Hampton, you name it, they always dive right into like, how do you handle fees? And how do you handle a difficult client? And what does your contract look like? And talking about Dwayne, it's one of the things that I really appreciate is that he's transparent about his struggles, how he handles his business, et cetera, et cetera. But I think designers are everybody wants to be seen. But two, they are always looking because they are most likely the sole proprietor of their firm to connect with other like-minded designers.
Right, right. We
So
are
I think
also doing a 15% profit challenge this year, and we are meeting once a month. I'm about to send out, we have 300 signups. So we did our first talk in January, and I've got another one going out this week. And I just hope that what we're going to do is tackle pricing. And every month we're going to tackle some other part of the business, but feel free to join if you are interested in that. We are
great.
trying to solve our world's problems together.
And that's all. So you both provide such support and community for the industry, and that's so important. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you. Well,
you.
this has been so lovely, Anne, and a great
Thank
kickoff
you.
to our Women's History Month. And we definitely want to see more empowerment of women. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This episode is brought to you by Curry & Company. Designers, you know the moment. You walk into the room and the lighting stops you in your tracks. Chances are it might be Curry. Curry & Company has built its reputation on pieces that feel sculptural, collected, and timeless, from hand-finished chandeliers to statement lamps, furniture, and accessories. Their collection is top-notch. If you haven't explored their newest introductions, take a look. Visit curryandcompany.com.